Hello, my name is Jonathan Kuhn, and this is my oral presentation on emergency management and the Constitution. Today, we're going to talk about the history of emergency management and the Constitution and how it applies today. We're going to talk about the Founding Fathers and their beliefs on emergency management and how it should play out throughout the different states. And we're going to talk about how legislation has been passed and how the Constitution has been interpreted in recent years to mean something different than what the Founding Fathers interpreted it as. In the beginning of this country, this document here, a copy of the Constitution, was written, and in the preamble it talks about the role of the federal government, such as national defense, to provide justice, and also to promote the general welfare of the people of the United States. Thomas Jefferson and many of the Jeffersonian constructionists believed that the interpretation of the general welfare of the people meant that the funding for any type of emergency or disaster should be allocated to all states within the Union and not just a particular region. Alexander Hamilton, however, differed in opinion, and he felt that if, let's say there was a flood in South Carolina, then funds and assets from the federal government should be allocated to that region to help South Carolina rebuild, and in the end, the long-term picture that the entire country, the entire Union would be promoted, the general welfare would be better, because if South Carolina is not doing well, then the rest of the Union is not doing well. Thomas Jefferson's beliefs and the Jeffersonians' constructionist beliefs went out in the early stages of our country. In 1887, President Grover Cleveland vetoed a bill that would have granted financial aid to the state of Texas because they were going through a severe drought, and in the bill there was some agricultural aid to be provided to the state of Texas. And President Cleveland stated that while he empathized with the people of Texas, he did not feel the federal government had a role in a state issue such as the drought. As we've learned in this course, though, the last 100 years, emergency management and the role of the federal government has drastically changed from what it was before the early 1900s. In 2005, we had Hurricane Katrina, and we're all aware of the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. President Bush and Governor Blanco of Louisiana were at odds on how the recovery and how the response to the disaster should be. There's a key part of the Constitution that plays into Hurricane Katrina, and I'd like to talk about that. The Second Amendment has been a hot topic the last few months, but inside the Second Amendment, it gives each state the right to form a militia, also known as the National Guard. Well, per the Constitution, the National Guard is under the direction of the governor of that state. The Insurrection Act of 1807 gives the President the authorization to federalize National Guard troops in cases such as rebellion. But any other time, if the President would like to mobilize or federalize a National Guard unit or a state guardsman, then he or she must get the consent of the governor. Well, in 2005, during Hurricane Katrina, President Bush had mobilized 10,000 or federalized 10,500 troops from other states and sent them to Louisiana. As we all know, that was not enough, and the looting and rebellion within the city led Governor Blanco to request more federal troops. Well, President Bush wanted to federalize the Louisiana Guard, and Governor Blanco refused to allow him to do that. President Bush leaned back on the Insurrection Act of 1807 and wanted to implement that. However, the legal teams got together and said that that would not be a good course of action, and that that would be stretching the scope of that act. However, after Hurricane Katrina, the National Defense Authorization Act was passed. And what this does do is it allows the President to mobilize or federalize state guardsmen, not only during a rebellion or an upheaval, but also during a case of an emergency such as the Hurricane Katrina situation. We saw this implemented in 2012 during Hurricane Sandy. There are two numbers, 10 and 32, that play relevance to this conversation. A Title 32 guardsman is a state guardsman. Whenever you're a guardsman and you're under Title 32 orders, then you are under the governor of that state. Title 10 is a federalized guardsman, and he or she is under the direction of the president. What the National Defense Authorization Act allows is it allows that the Department of Defense establish what we call a dual-hatted commander within a state for an emergency situation. In New Jersey, there was a dual-hatted commander for Hurricane Sandy. And what this allowed is it allowed the Title 32 guardsmen under the governor's discretion and the Title 10 guardsmen under the direction of the president to report to one commander on the field for the emergency. And that plays big, and it reduces the confusion that we saw in Hurricane Katrina and streamlines the chain of command for the National Guard and their response to emergencies. Thank you for your time, and I hope if you have any questions, please put them on the discussion board, and the references that I used for this will be in the remarks for the video. Thanks for watching.